Okay, so I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawm al-din, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim wa ad-dallin, sadaqallahu al-'aliyyul 'azim. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So this is the 19th part of our series, The Art of Supplication, which is an ongoing exploration into the sacred relationship between the supplicant, the supplication, and the divine. The insights within this series are cumulative, and the nature of our discussion requires that each part build upon the foundations laid in the ones that came before. Therefore, to prevent misunderstanding and to fully benefit from the depth of this subject, it is essential that everyone engage with the previous parts in order before continuing with this one. Nevertheless, if I can get a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, we will have a recap of the previous part.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
So in our last session, our journey through the sacred windows of place continued to the sanctuaries of Iran, where we explored a syllabus for the believer's heart, learning the lessons of mercy, loyalty, and courage. Our path began in Mashhad, the sanctuary of mercy. There, at the threshold of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, peace and blessings be upon him, the guarantor of the vulnerable, Zamina Ahu, and the ultimate refuge for every estranged soul, Gharib al-Ghuraba, we learned that the foundation of true strength is an all-encompassing compassion, a rahmah that extends from a vulnerable deer to an entire nation and an entire world. We then traveled to Qom, the garden founded upon the loyalty of the saint, Sayyidah Fatima Ma'suma, peace and blessings be upon her. We witnessed how a woman's unwavering fidelity to her Imam could transform a humble village into a global fortress of knowledge, teaching us that true intercession or shafa'ah does not negate our duty, but rather empowers our loyalty. Finally, we stood at the silent gardens of the martyrs, the places of ultimate sacrifice. In the presence of the shuhada, the witnesses, we learned the pedagogy of death, that to live without fear, we must connect to those who are truly alive with their Lord, and that our fear of mortality must be replaced by a fear of dishonor and displeasing God. Together, these sanctuaries have taught us the virtues of the heart, to be merciful, to be loyal, and to be fearless. But our sacred map is not yet complete. The story of the Ahlulbayt also takes us to places of immense trial and profound mystery. What happens when the light of Imamah is not accessible in a grand shrine, but is confined within the four walls of a prison? And what happens when that light is withdrawn from public view altogether, veiled by the command of God? Tonight, our journey continues as we seek the answers in the final great sanctuaries of the Imams in Iraq. We travel first to Kadhimiyyah, the shrine of the imprisoned light, where Imam Musa al-Kadhim and his grandson, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, peace and blessings be upon them both, teach us the power of patience or sabr, and endurance in the face of absolute tyranny. From there, we journey to Samarra, the threshold of the unseen. Here, in the city of the final two visible Imams, that is Imam Ali al-Hadi and Imam Hassan al-Askari, peace and blessings be upon them both, we stand at the birthplace of the occultation and learn the active preparatory meaning of awaiting or al-Intidhar. Finally, we will trace how this light, though veiled, was never extinguished, exploring the shrines of the various Imamzadehs, the thousands of dispersed lamps, whose graves have sanctified lands across the globe, ensuring the continuity of Wilayah and providing a local connection to the hidden heart of the Imamah. In his most beautiful of names, we continue. If I can get a salawat, we can move on to the first portion, which is Kadhimiyyah, the sanctuary of imprisoned light.
اللهم
صل
اللهم
على
صل
صل
على
محمد
محمد وآل
على
وآل
محمد
محمد
آل
وعجل
محمد
فرج.
وعجل فرجه.
So our journey now takes us to the final great sanctuaries of the Imams in Iraq, to places that teach the profound lessons of endurance and anticipation. We begin in the Golden Dome Sanctuary of Kadhimiyyah in Baghdad, the resting place of the 7th Imam Musa al-Kadhim and his grandson, the 9th Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, peace and blessings be upon them both. Kadhimiyyah presents us with a profound paradox, a place defined by imprisonment and martyrdom, a radiant source of spiritual liberation and answered prayers. It is a school that teaches that a divine light can never truly be confined, and that a prison cell, when inhabited by a friend of God, becomes a sanctuary. So let's now look at the school of Yusuf and the patience of al-Kadhim. The concept of a prison as a place of spiritual victory rather than defeat is a Quranic principle. It was established by the prophet Yusuf, peace and blessings be upon him, who, when faced with the choice between sin and incarceration, chose the purity of prison rather than and turned his confinement into a testament of his faith. In Quran, Surah Yusuf, the chapter of Prophet Joseph, 12th chapter of the Quran, verse number 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, meaning Yusuf said, "My Lord, the prison is more beloved to me than that to which they invite me." Imam al-Kadhim's, or Imam Musa's most famous title is al-Kadhim, one who restrains or swallows his anger. This was not a sign of passivity, but of immense spiritual power, reflecting a divine quality praised by God in the Quran as a characteristic of the highest believers, al-Muhsineen. In Quran, Surah Al Imran, the chapter of the family of Imran, 3rd chapter of the Quran, verse 134, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And those who restrain anger and pardon the people, and God loves the doers of good." The Imam's resistance was not just in the clash of swords, but in the steadfastness of his soul. His jihad was to embody divine ethics in the face of absolute inhumanity. The Ziyarah, or visitation prayer recited at his shrine, is a powerful testament to the nature of his holy struggle. It does not speak of battles or conquests, but of a profound spiritual victory, won in the darkness of the dungeons. The visitor bears witness to his suffering and his steadfastness, saying, "Peace be upon the one who was tormented in the depths of the prisons and the darkness of the dungeons, the one whose leg was bruised by the rings of the chains. Peace be upon the companion of the long prostration, of the abundant tears, and of the frequent intimate prayers." Of course, this is from the Ziyarah of Imam Musa al-Kazim, and as with all of these sessions, the references, citations are in the write-up. The tyrant believed he could silence the Imam by imprisoning his body. But as the great jurist and Arif, or Gnostic, Ayatollah Bahjat, may God rest his pure soul, explained, he only succeeded in turning the prison into a prayer niche or a mihrab, teaching us that no wall can ever imprison the soul of a believer. Ayatollah Bahjat says, "For the friends of God, a prison is a private chamber for intimacy with the beloved." Imam al-Kadhim transformed the prison into a prayer niche, a mihrab, and taught us that no wall can ever imprison the soul of a believer. And again, the citations and references are in the write-up. Let's now look at the mirror of the community, a test of allegiance. But the Imam's imprisonment was not only a testament to his own divine patience, it was also a severe and painful test for the Shia community of his time. The story of Kadhimiyyah holds up a mirror, forcing us to ask not only what did the tyrant do, but also what did the believers do? For nearly 7 years, the Imam was imprisoned in Baghdad. At the very same time, a short journey away, thousands of his followers were making the arduous pilgrimage from Karbala to commemorate Ashura and Arba'in. This tragic irony is a wound in our history. The contemporary scholar Sayyid Hashim al-Haydari, may Allah protect him, holds this mirror up to us with a searing and essential question. He says, for 7 years, Imam al-Kadhim was in prison. Where were his Shia? They would go on foot to Karbala while the real Hussein was in prison. This is our history, and Karbala bears witness to it. And again, the references, citations are in the write-up. This is not a condemnation of Ziyarah or the tears shed for Imam al-Hussein. Rather, it is a powerful call to ensure that our rituals are not an escape from our responsibilities, but are the very fuel for them. It is a reminder that the deepest tragedy was not just the chains placed on the Imam by his enemy, but it was the collective failure of a community that was busy with the rituals of mourning a martyred Imam while neglecting the duty of allegiance to their living Imam. Let's now look at a spiritual key for the prisoner. The school of Ahlulbayt does not only diagnose a problem, it provides a remedy. In the face of unjust imprisonment beyond political action and social solidarity, we are given a powerful spiritual arsenal. Let's first of all look at the a'mal or special acts of worship of Dawood. At the forefront of these is the famous a'mal of Dawood. The story of this supplication is directly linked to the tyranny of the Abbasids that Imam al-Kadhim would face. Dawood was the wet nurse of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him. Her own son Dawood was unjustly imprisoned and taken to Iraq by the Abbasid Khalif al-Mansur. In her grief and desperation, she went to Imam al-Sadiq for help. The Imam told her to wait for the sacred month of Rajab. We've mentioned the importance of the month of Rajab in earlier sessions, and to perform a specific set of acts on the 15th day. To fast on the white days, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And again, we've spoken about the white days. To perform ghusl, or the ritual bathing, at noon on the 15th, and then offer a series of prayers followed by a long, profound supplication that he taught her. Now, the great scholar of supplication, Sayyid ibn Tawus, narrates the outcome. And the reference for this, of course, is in the write-up. He says, Sayyid ibn Tawus says, Dawood said, so I wrote down the supplication and left. When night came, I continued praying until the last part of the night. Then I slept, and I saw the messenger of God, and with him the prophets and the Imams. And he, the messenger of God, said, O Dawood, rejoice, for God the Exalted has answered your prayer, and your son will be released. She said, I awoke, and it was not long after, just the time it takes to travel from Iraq, that Dawood returned. This established the a'mal as a time-tested spiritual remedy. And it is important to clarify that while its most powerful and recommended time is the 15th of Rajab, our great scholars have affirmed that the supplication, dua itself, can be recited at any time of need with the intention of seeking God's favor. In addition to this, our tradition is rich with other keys for the prisoner. You have the supplication of Imam Musa al-Kadhim in prison. This is perhaps the most potent supplication, as it was recited by the Imam of the prisoners himself. And Sayyid ibn Tawus again mentions this, the references in the write-up. He says, O deliverer of the plant from between the sand, clay, and water, deliver me from the hands of Harun. We can now look at the supplication of Prophet Jonah or Yunus. The Imams have taught that no believer in distress recites this verse without God granting them relief. And of course, this is from Surah Al-Anbiya, Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets, 21st chapter of the Quran, verse number 87. And it reads, there is no God except you, exalted are you. Indeed, I have been of the wrongdoers. These are not just ancient texts. They have been the lifelines for the heroes of our own era. From the dungeons of the Shah to the solitary confinement cells of Zionist prisons, the steadfastness of believers like Sheikh Abdul Karim Ubaid and Hajj Mustafa Dirani was nurtured by this very spiritual connection, which turns the prison from a tool of the oppressor into a site of spiritual ascension or mi'raj. Finally, there is a profound supplication for moments when all material doors seemed closed. This supplication or dua, attributed to the great Gnostic Sayyid Ali Qadi Tabatabai, has recently and repeatedly been emphasized by both Imam Khamenei and Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, may God rest his pure soul, as a source of immense power in the face of seemingly insurmountable difficulties. It is the key for the impossible. It reads, O God, O you who, when matters become constricted, opens a door for them that imaginations cannot even conceive of. Send your blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and for my own constricted matters, open a door that no imagination can conceive of, O Lord of the worlds. And the citation and reference for this is, of course, in the write-up. This supplication is the ultimate expression of trust in God's limitless power, to create a way where there seems to be no way, a perfect spiritual weapon for every believer facing the prisons of our time. Let's now look at the calls to clarify, lessons from the imprisoned light. Firstly, clarify your power, the victory of the cell over the palace. Kadhimiyyah teaches us that the true power is spiritual endurance, not worldly authority. The tyrant Harun Abbasi is a footnote remembered for his cruelty. The imprisoned Imam, with nothing but his prayer mat, conquered history and continues to rule over the hearts of millions. This principle that steadfastness or sumud in captivity is itself a form of victory is a cornerstone of the modern school of resistance. The martyred leader of the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, may God rest his pure soul, has affirmed this, explaining that the prisoner achieves victory from within the cell itself. He said, when the prisoner is steadfast in his prison and does not break and does not give the enemy the information or concessions that it wants, then this in itself is a great victory. He achieves victory from within the prison cell. And again, the reference and citation for this is in the write-up. Secondly, clarify your devotions from ritual to allegiance. The painful history of Imam al-Kadhim's imprisonment forces us to clarify the nature of our devotion. We must ask ourselves, are our rituals, our ziyarah, our mourning, our tears, connected to our allegiance to the Hussein of our own time, or are they a substitute for it? This lesson calls us to ensure that our love for the past Imams translates into active, costly loyalty to the cause of the Imam of our age. Let's now look at clarify your prison, the mihrab or prayer niche in the prison of the self. The lesson of the imprisoned Imam forces us to clarify the nature of our own self-imposed prisons. Many of us are prisoners of our fears, our bad habits, our greed, or our desire for social approval. The lesson of Kadhimiyyah is to transform these personal prisons into sanctuaries of remembrance. We can turn our solitude into a dialogue with God, and our struggles against our ego into a form of jihad or struggle, emulating the Imam who turned his dungeon into a prayer niche. Let's now look at clarifying your solidarity from feeling to action. To truly be a follower of Imam al-Kadhim is to feel the pain of every unjustly imprisoned person. Our ziyarah to him is incomplete if we do not remember the prisoners of conscience in our own time. From the forgotten scholars in despotic regimes to the thousands of Palestinians languishing in Zionist dungeons. We must clarify that our solidarity is not just a passive feeling of sympathy, but it is an active spiritual duty. We can revive the tradition of performing the a'mal of Dawood and regularly recite the profound supplications taught by the Imams, especially the dua of Imam al-Kadhim from his own cell, dedicating the immense power of these prayers to the freedom of all who are unjustly imprisoned. Please give me a salawat and we move to the second point in the session, which is Samarra, the portal to the unseen.
اللهم صل
اللهم صل
على
على
محمد
محمد وآل
وآل
محمد
محمد
وعجل
وعجل
فرج.
فرجهم.
From the defiant patience of the prison cell in Kadhimiyyah, a journey now takes us to Samarra, the city that became a fortress and a cage for the final visible Imams of Ahlulbayt. It was here in a garrison city built by the Abbasids to control their own military that the 10th Imam, Imam Ali al-Hadi, and the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari, peace and blessings be upon them both, were held under intense house arrest. They shared the title al-Askariyain, the two in the military camp. This testifies to the reality of their lives. Samarra is the sanctuary of the besieged imamah, and more profoundly, it is the portal, the great threshold where the era of manifest, physically accessible leadership transitioned into the era of occultation or Ghaybah. Let's now look at the theology of concealment. The veiling of God's proof is not an accident of history, but a part of the divine plan foreseen in the Quran itself. The Imams, peace and blessings be upon them, explain that the continuity of guidance, even when the guide is hidden, is alluded to in Surah Saba. If we look at Quran, Surah Saba, the chapter of Sheba, 34th chapter of the Quran, verse number 18, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "And we placed between them and the cities which we had blessed, other cities apparent." Now, in his seminal early tafsir, or exegesis, Sheikh Ali ibn Ibrahim al-Qummi records a profound esoteric interpretation of this verse from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, peace and blessings be upon him. The Imam explained the verse's inner meaning, saying, and again, the references, citations are all in the write-up. Imam al-Baqir explained it like this: the cities which we had blessed are the Imams of Ahlulbayt, peace and blessings be upon them, and the cities apparent are the proofs, hujjaj, from amongst them, who are manifest in some areas and hidden in others. Imam al-Baqir, peace and blessings be upon him, explained that the cities which we had blessed are the Ahlulbayt, and the cities apparent are the continuous chain of hujjaj, or proofs from them. Some of these proofs are manifest, and some are hidden. This verse sets a divine precedent for the continuity of guidance, even when the guide is concealed from public view. The occultation was not a rupture, but a divinely ordained transition. It was in Samarra, under the watchful eyes of the Abbasid state, that this transition was born. Here, in the most controlled of environments imaginable, the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, peace and blessings be upon him, may God hasten his return, and may our souls be his ransom, was born in secret, a miracle of hope in an age of despair, before he was swiftly veiled from the world by God's command. Let's now look at the school of Intidhar, or active awaiting. The beginning of the occultation in Samarra inaugurated a new spiritual practice for the Shia community, Intidhar al-Faraj, waiting for the relief. This is not a passive, helpless waiting. It is one of the highest forms of worship. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his family declared, and this is again, the citations are all in the write-up, he said, "The best of the actions of my ummah is waiting for the relief." This waiting is rooted in the absolute necessity of the Imam. His physical presence or absence does not change his status as the hujjah, or proof of God, and the axis of existence. This is why the Prophet gave his famous and solemn warning. And again, the reference for this is in the write-up. The Prophet has said, "Whoever dies without knowing the Imam of his time dies the death of Jahiliyyah, or the age of ignorance." Our duty, therefore, is to know him and to wait for him. But the question then comes, what is the nature of this waiting? The great martyr and philosopher, Ayatollah Murtada Mutahhari, may God rest his pure soul, made a crucial distinction between the two types of intidhar or waiting. He says, there is constructive waiting and destructive waiting. Destructive waiting is that which says the world must be filled with injustice for the Imam to come. So we will sit silently. But constructive waiting is the waiting that compels a person to reform him or herself and his society in order to prepare the grounds for the return or the reappearance. And the reference, of course, is in the write-up. This constructive waiting is the very essence of the revolutionary spirit. Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, the architect of the modern embodiment of this principle, taught that waiting for the Imam means actively fighting against the very injustices he will come to uproot. Imam Khomeini has said, we who are waiting must strive to equip ourselves and others to prepare the grounds for his reappearance. Waiting for the relief is waiting for the power of Islam, and we must work to bring about its realization. And of course, references are in the write-up. This active preparation begins with the self. The great Arif or Gnostic and Faqih, jurist, Ayatollah Uthman Bahjat, may God rest his pure soul, emphasized that true intidhar or waiting is an internal spiritual struggle for purification. He says, waiting for the relief is the highest station of submission and servitude. The true waiter is the one who prepares himself to be a soldier for the Imam of the time. And this readiness cannot be achieved except through self-purification and piety. And the reference is in the write-up. This internal purity must then manifest externally as a commitment to social justice. The late Ayatollah Sayyid Muhsin Fadlallah, may God rest his pure soul, connected al-intidhar directly to our global responsibilities, saying, waiting is not a negative state. It is a positive state of movement in the line of justice against injustice. The one who waits is the one who lives the concerns of the oppressed everywhere and works to lift the injustice from them. And of course, the reference for this is in the write-up. Ultimately, this constructive, self-purifying, and justice-seeking waiting finds its most complete expression in the school of resistance. Said Hassan Nasrallah, may God rest his pure soul, has repeatedly taught that steadfastly resisting the global arrogance and its projects across the world is the highest and most practical form of intidhar or waiting today. He said, our resistance and our steadfastness in the face of the Zionists and the American projects is, in itself, one of the best manifestations of waiting for relief. We are paving the way for the Imam by creating a generation of resistance that does not accept humiliation and disgrace. Let's now look at some calls to clarify, lessons from the portal to the unseen. The first one being, clarify the meaning of waiting from passivity to preparation. Samarra teaches us to clarify our understanding of al-intidhar or waiting. It is not a passive hope that things will get better on their own. It is an active and revolutionary state of preparation. As Sheikh Ali Raza Panhayan, may God protect him, teaches, intidhar or waiting is the ultimate framework for personal and social actions. He says, waiting, intidhar, is the most strategic and powerful form of self-building and community building. And the reference is, of course, in the write-up. This means we must be purifying our souls, strengthening our families, building just communities, Tawheed-oriented communities, and standing against the tyrants of our time, so that when the Imam does return, he finds soldiers and servants, not mere spectators. Secondly, let's look at clarify our connection, the unbroken bond. The occultation does not mean the Imam is absent or unaware. He is the veiled sun, whose light and warmth still reach the earth, we must clarify that our connection to him is real and unbroken. This connection is maintained through sincere supplication, moving between the heartfelt cry of yearning and the direct address of love. We cry out with the words of Dua Nudba, where we say, "Where is the remnant of God? Aina baqiyatullah? Where is the remnant of God?" And we address him directly with the beautiful salutation from Ziyarah al-Yasin. We say, "Peace be upon you, O proof of God and the guide to his will." The connection is also strengthened by giving charity on his behalf and by making our every action an offering to him, our every action. And above all, by actively waiting, by working to hasten his return, and by being ready for when he does return. And that is not something in the future. This is a waiting that we know. We say in Dua al-Ahad that they see it as distance, meaning the enemies see it as distant, but we know it to be near. This is the way we must think. And as the mystics say, we work to make the proverbial sun rise in the west. Next, let's look at clarifying our goal, paving the way for his government. The ultimate purpose of our waiting is not just personal salvation. It is to prepare for the establishment of his divine global government. This clarifies our ultimate political and social goal. Every act of justice we perform, every effort to fight corruption in ourselves, in our homes, in our families, our communities, our villages, our towns and cities, our countries, and every move to defend the oppressed is a small act of paving the way for his return and his governance. Our waiting is a constant struggle or jihad to make ourselves and our small corner of the world worthy of the justice that he will bring. Please give me a salawat and we move to the third point, which is the presence, the dispersed lamps of Wilayah.
اللهم صل
اللهم صل
على
على
محمد
محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد
محمد
والفرج.
Our journey through the sacred windows of place began in the great central sanctuaries and has now led us to the threshold of concealment in Kadhimiyyah and Samarra. This raises a crucial two-part question for the era of the occultation, of the Imam's occultation. Firstly, how does his authoritative guidance continue? The Imams themselves answered this, directing us to the righteous jurist, al-Fuqaha, the Maraji and the Wali al-Faqih, as their general deputies and our guides in matters of law, society, and understanding. Secondly, beyond legal guidance, how does the tangible blessing or barakah and the felt spiritual presence of Ahlulbayt remain accessible to believers scattered all over the globe? The answer to the second question comes in two beautiful parts. The first lies in the thousands of shrines of the Imamzadehs, the noble descendants of the Imams. These are the dispersed lamps, the living proof of a sacred geography that was never meant to be confined, but was destined to expand. This is the journey we will complete in this session. The second part of the answer, which will be the topic of our final session next week, inshallah, God willing, is even more intimate. It lies in the divine potential vested in our own local spaces, our mosques, our community centers, and our very homes, which we are called to transform into sanctuaries ourselves. But first, let us explore the great network of the dispersed lamps. So the first point, a geography of light, the sanctuaries of the Imamzadehs. Now, before we explore these sites, it's important to understand the term Imamzadeh itself. The word Imamzadeh is a Persian Farsi compound word, Imam and Zadeh, meaning born of or descendant of Imam. Therefore, an Imamzadeh is a descendant, a child, a grandchild, or later progeny of one of the Imams. Over time, this term has come to refer not only to the holy person, but also to the shrine or mausoleum that houses their remains. While there is no single Arabic equivalent, the shrine is often called a maqam, or a station, or marqad, resting place of the Ahlulbayt, and the descendants themselves are known as Sadat, or Sayyids. The dispersion of the Prophet's descendants was a tragedy born of intense persecution by the Umayyads and the Abbasid Caliphs. The Alawites, meaning the descendants of Imam Ali, were forced to migrate, seeking refuge in the farthest corners of the Muslim world, from the mountains of Daylam in Iran to the valleys of Yemen, from the cities of Syria to the plains of Central Asia and North Africa. But what the tyrants intended as an act of erasure, God transformed into an act of plantation. Wherever these noble souls settled, taught, or were martyred, their very presence sanctified the land, and their graves became seeds from which new communities of faith would germinate and grow. This reality is a beautiful manifestation of God's promise in Quran, where He says in Quran, Surah Fussilat, the chapter of the detailed explanations, 41st chapter of the Quran, verse number 53, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And we will show them our signs on the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth." The shrines of the Imamzadehs are these very signs on the horizon. The Ahlulbayt themselves established the profound spiritual status of these sites. When a man from Ray came to the 10th Imam, Imam Ali al-Hadi, peace and blessings be upon him, and said he had just returned from the Ziyarah of Imam Hussein, the Imam gave him this incredible advice. And this is noted by Sheikh al-Saduq, and you can find the reference in the write-up. Imam al-Hadi said, "Know that if you had visited the grave of al-Azim on your own land, you would be like one who has visited Imam Hussein ibn Ali, peace and blessings be upon him." This hadith about the maqam of Shah al-Azim al-Hassani in Ray, which is near modern-day Tehran towards the south, establishes a vital principle. God, in His mercy, has provided local points of access to the immense grace of these major shrines for those who cannot reach them. Let's now look at windows into the unseen, the spiritual function of the shrines. These shrines are not mere historical monuments. They are active spiritual conduits, windows into the unseen. Each one is a local embassy of the Imamah, offering a tangible point for tawassul, seeking a connection, and a place where prayers are answered. Ayatollah Bahjat, may God rest his pure soul, explained this spiritual reality, saying, "Each one of these Imamzadehs is a window into the unseen world, and a means of turning one's attention to the Imam of our time. Visiting them is a renewal of one's covenant with the line of Wilayah." And the reference is, of course, in the writer. This reality is felt palpably at the thousands of shrines scattered across the globe. Each one is a testament not merely to a flight from persecution, but to an honorable resistance enacted through migration itself. In leaving their homes, the descendants of Ahlulbayt refused to grant legitimacy to the tyrants, and wherever they settled, they continued their sacred mission, educating, guiding, and planting the seeds of true faith and true love in new lands. Let's now look at the shrines of the Imamzadehs. Among the most well-known and revered shrines of the Imamzadehs are, and this is a very small subset, because there are literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands across the entire world, but a small subset. First of all, you have Sayyid Zainab bint Ali in Damascus in Syria, the heroic daughter of Imam Ali, whose courage after the tragedy of Karbala saved the Imamah. Her shrine is a global center for the lovers of Ahlul Bayt and a symbol of resistance. Secondly, you have Sayyidah Ruqayya bint al-Hussein, again in Damascus, Syria, the young daughter of Imam al-Hussein who was martyred as a child in the prison of Yazid. Her small, powerful shrine is a testament to the suffering of the children of Karbala. Next, you have Shah al-Azim al-Hassani, who we mentioned just a moment ago, in Ray, which is the southern part of Tehran in Iran. A noble descendant of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, who fled Abbasid persecution and died in hiding, making resistance. Imam al-Hadi declared that visiting his grave carries the same reward as visiting the grave of Imam al-Hussein. Next one you have Ahmad ibn Musa al-Kadhim, known commonly as Shah Chiragh, in Shiraz in Iran, the son of the seventh Imam and brother of Imam Rida. He was journeying to join his brother in Khurasan when he and his entourage were ambushed and martyred by Abbasid agents. His name means the king of the light. Next you have Imamzadeh Saleh in Tajrish in northern Tehran, Iran. A son of the seventh Imam, Imam Musa al-Kadhim, and therefore a brother of Imam Rida. He migrated to the region of Ray to escape Abbasid persecution and was martyred in the area of Tajrish, where his luminous shrine is now a major center of pilgrimage in Iran's capital. Next you have Imamzadeh Dawood in Khan, very north of Tehran in Iran. A revered descendant of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, peace and blessings be upon him. According to historical accounts, he fled the persecution of the Abbasids with his companions and sought refuge in the Al-Borz mountains, north of Ray, modern-day Tehran. He was martyred there, and his shrine, located in a remote mountain valley, has been a major site of pilgrimage for centuries. The difficult journey to reach a shrine was historically seen as an act of great devotion. Next, you have Sayyidah Nafisa in Cairo, Egypt. A renowned scholar and ascetic, a descendant of Imam al-Hassan, she migrated to Egypt, where her piety and knowledge were so revered that her shrine in Cairo is a place of pilgrimage for both Shia and Sunni Muslims to this day. Next, you have the sons of Muslim and Aqil and Musayyib in Iraq. Muhammad and Ibrahim, the youngest sons of Imam Hussein's envoy to Kufa. They escaped from prison after Karbala, but were martyred for the bounty on their heads. Their story is one of the most heart-rending episodes of the post-Ashura epic. Next, you have Yahya ibn Zayd, which is in Saripol, Afghanistan. The grandson of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Following the path of his grandfather, Imam Zayd, he led an uprising against the tyranny of the Umayyads and was martyred. His shrine is a major center of pilgrimage in Afghanistan. Next, you have Qutham ibn Abbas, Shah-e-Zindeh, in Samarkand and Uzbekistan. While technically not an Imamzadeh, he was a cousin of the Prophet Muhammad and Imam Ali. He brought Islam to Central Asia and was martyred there. His magnificent shrine, the Tomb of the Living King, shows the vast reach of the Prophet's family. Next, you have Abdullah Shah Ghazi in Karachi in Pakistan, a descendant of Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, second Imam. He was martyred in Sindh in the 8th century after being pursued by Abbasid agents. His shrine overlooking the Arabian Sea is a sanctuary for people of all backgrounds in Karachi. Next, you have Bibi Park Darman, the chaste ladies, in Lahore in Pakistan. This revered shrine is held to be the resting place of several ladies of Ahlulbayt, including Sayyidah Ruqayya, a daughter of Imam Ali, who fled after the tragedy of Karbala. Next, you have Mawlay Idris I. Mawlay Idris Zarhoun in Morocco, in the country of Morocco, a great-great-grandson of Imam al-Hassan, who fled the Abbasids after the Battle of Fakh. He established the Idrisid dynasty and is considered the founder of the state of Morocco. His shrine is a foundational site for the country. You then have Imam al-Hadi al-Haq in Sa'da in Yemen. A descendant of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, Yahya ibn al-Hussein is the foundational figure of the Zaydi Imama in Yemen, a dynasty of the Prophet's descendants that ruled for over 1,000 years. His shrine in Sa'da is one of the most important historical and religious sites in Yemen. Let's now look at the Hadrami Sayyids from Yemen to the Far East. The dispersion of the Ahlulbayt's barakah or blessing also took other forms, particularly in Yemen, which became a great sanctuary for the Prophet's descendants. A powerful historical parallel exists. Around the same time that Imam al-Hadi al-Haq, who we mentioned earlier, was establishing a state of justice in northern Yemen, another great descendant of the Prophet, Ahmad al-Muhajir, was migrating to southern Yemen to escape persecution. This Ahmad al-Muhajir was a direct descendant of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him. He emigrated from Iraq to the Hadramaut region of Yemen, establishing a safe haven for his family and followers. Centuries later, his descendants, now known as the Hadrami Sayyids, began a second wave of migration, not fleeing persecution, but carrying the message of Islam as merchant scholars. They traveled the Indian Ocean trade routes, settling in the Malay archipelago, which is modern-day Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, the coast of India, especially the Malabar and Gujarat coasts, and East Africa, specifically the Swahili coast. These Hadrami Sayyids were instrumental in peacefully spreading Islam and a deep-rooted love for Ahlulbayt throughout Southeast Asia, the coast of India, the coastal regions of India, and also in the Swahili coast of East Africa. Their piety, knowledge, and noble lineage earned them enduring respect. While they did not establish Imamzadeh-style shrines, their own blessed graves, and more importantly, the profound reverence for the Prophet's family that they instilled, became a central part of the region's Islamic identity. This entire global network, from the grand shrines of Syria and Iraq and Iran to the blessed graves of the Sayyids in Indonesia, is a testament to the fact that the light of Ahlul Bayt cannot be extinguished and their barakah cannot be confined to a single land. Let's now look at some calls to clarify lessons from these dispersed lamps. First of all, clarify the function of the shrine from tourism to transformation. We must clarify that visiting an Imamzadeh is ziyarah, not tourism. The goal is not to capture an image or selfie for a photo album or social media, but to capture a moment of grace for the soul. It is a place for offering prayer, seeking connection, reflecting, and learning. Our duty is to honor and revitalize these local shrines, turning them into active centers of Islamic education, of community service, and spiritual guidance. We must reflect the legacy of the great scholars, saints, and merchant teachers like the Hadrami Sayyids, who often founded these communities, not just through their blessed deaths, but through their dedicated lives of teaching and service. Second point, clarify the global family beyond ethnicity and nationalism. The map of the shrines of Ahlul Bayt is a powerful clarification against the poisons of nationalism and racism. These sacred graves are scattered from Syria and Egypt to Iran and Afghanistan, from Pakistan to Morocco, from Malaysia to Indonesia, and further afield. This proves that the family of the Prophet is a universal inheritance that unites believers across all borders. The Hadrami Sayyids, who carried the love of Ahlul Bayt from Yemen to the shores of Southeast Asia and beyond, are a perfect example of this global spiritual identity, which makes the artificial lines drawn by historic colonialism, imperialism, and occupation meaningless, and indeed abhorrent from a God-centric perspective. Next, let's look at clarifying the ultimate sanctuary, from the horizon to the heart. The entire journey of visiting the sacred places finds its ultimate purpose in a promise made by God in the Quran. In Quran, Surah Fussilat, the chapter of the detailed explanations, 41st chapter of the Quran, verse 53, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "We will show them our signs on the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth." Our journey through the sacred windows has been a journey to witness these signs on the horizons, from Mecca to Karbala, from Mashhad to the smallest Imamzadeh shrine, to the grave of the Sayyid. This brings us to the pivotal lesson of this journey, to connect the external signs to the signs within themselves. The ultimate purpose of visiting the external shrines on the horizon is to learn how to build an internal shrine in our own hearts. This is the most sacred space of all. For as God explains in a famous divine tradition or Hadith Qudsi, and this is noted by Faiz Kashani, again, the references are all in the write-up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Neither my earth nor my heaven can contain me, but the heart of my believing servant does contain me." Therefore, just as the Imamzadeh sanctified the lands where they rested, our ultimate duty is to sanctify the land of our own hearts, making them worthy shrines for the remembrance of God and unwavering loyalty to his proof. If I can now get a loud salawat, we can move to the conclusion, which is from the prison to the presence.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعجل فرجه.
So tonight, our journey has taken us to the thresholds of concealment and the geography of continuity. We began in Kadhimiyyah, the prison of light, confined yet radiant. There, in the steadfastness of Imam al-Kadhim, we learned that true power is not worldly authority, but spiritual endurance, and that even a dungeon can be transformed into a prayer niche or mihrab by a soul connected to God. We then traveled to Samarra, the portal to the unseen, at the doorstep of the great occultation. We learned that physical absence does not mean disconnection, and that the duty of waiting, al-Intidhar, is not one of passive hope, but of active, revolutionary preparation. Finally, we trace the presence of the Ahlulbayt across the globe through the dispersed lamps of the Imamzadeh. From Syria to Pakistan, from Morocco to Afghanistan, and way beyond, we saw how their blessed shrines became local points of access to the universal mercy of the Prophet's family, proving that the barakah or blessing of Wilayah can never be confined to a single land. But what is the ultimate purpose of this vast global map of sacred ground? The school of Ahlulbayt teaches us that we visit these external signs on the horizon to learn how to cultivate the signs within ourselves. In our final session of this series, God willing, we will bring this lesson home. Our guide in this will be the profound declaration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, who expanded the map of sacred space to encompass the entire world. He says, Rasulullah, Prophet Muhammad said, and again, the reference is in the write-up, "I have been given 5 things, and the earth has been made for me a place of prostration, masjid, and a means of purification, tahur." Guided by this principle, we will descend from the grand shrines to the spaces nearest to us, our local mosques, our community centers, and our very own homes, learning how to complete our journey as active map makers of a sacred world. Please give me a salawat and we move to the final section of this session, which is the whisper beneath the throne, which is a supplication for the awaited dawn.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
In your name, O Lord of the imprisoned and the patient, O Lord of the hidden and the awaited, O Lord of the dispersed lamps who illuminate the darkness, O God, pour your boundless blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the chain of your guidance that can never be broken. O Lord, we have journeyed tonight to the thresholds of concealment. By the right of the long prostrations of al-Kadhim in his prison, grant us the patience to endure our own trials. By the right of the hopeful waiting of al-Askari in Samarra, make our waiting for your proof an act of active preparation. And by the right of the loyalty of the Imamzadehs, who scattered your light across the earth, allow our own lives to be a source of guidance in our own small corners of the world. O Lord, we ask you by the sanctity of the Sada, the righteous inheritors of this sacred lineage, bless and elevate the scholars who preserve this path, like Ayatollah al-Khoi and Allama Tabatabai. Bless the leaders who revived it in our time, like Imam al-Khomeini and Ayatollah Fadlallah. Bless the martyrs who gave their blood for it, like Sayyidina Wahb Safari. Bless the disappeared who sacrificed for it, like Imam Musa al-Sadr. O God, we ask you to protect, preserve, and grant an imminent victory to the leader of our time, Imam Khamenei. Elevate the station of the masters of the resistance, the martyr, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, joining him with his masters, Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And O Lord, grant steadfastness, divine protection, and clear victory to those who carry the banner today, especially his successor, Sheikh Naim Qasim, and the courageous leader of the Helpers of God in Yemen, Sayyid Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi. Grant us, O Lord, the ability and success, tawfiq, to be worthy followers of such guides. Let us not be of those who know their stories but forget their path. Make us like them, servants of the oppressed and soldiers for your cause. And hasten, O Lord, hasten the appearance of your proof, the hidden light, our master, al-Mahdi. May our souls be his ransom, and may you hasten his return. Let our hearts be his meeting place, and our actions be a preparation for his government, until the day we are counted among those who rise to answer his call, ready to serve and sacrifice for your sake, O most merciful of the merciful. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. وآخر الدعوان الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.